Today's episode has been brought to you by Schedulicity. Welcome to episode 34 of the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast with today's guest, Amanda Kingsmith of the M.B.OM podcast. Do you ever feel like you really struggle with the business side of yoga? Do you shrink down when you hear words like marketing, sales funnels, and money mindset? As a yoga teacher, especially after I left my first 200-hour yoga teacher training, I felt overwhelmed and alone in the wilderness of yoga entrepreneurship. I had the philosophy, pranayama, meditations, and asanas all ready to go. I had my playlists made, but I didn't give a lot of thought to the business side of yoga. Speaking of playlists, I just need to go back for a moment because I had a funny little incident happen this week with a mutual yoga teacher friend. We were talking about just kind of where we're going moving forward, working with yoga students and really our true niche, our true callings. It was very exciting. And then she just said the funniest thing. She was like, "Remember all of the time that we spent creating playlists?" To have the music absolutely perfect. And so I really appreciate this. It's so true. I rarely ever use a playlist now. When I do, it's kind of background music, although there are times where I still use a playlist. I'm a big fan of yoga dance, and so that requires a lot of basic choreography and planning. But in terms of just putting a group class together, or in terms of the one-on-one work that I do, yoga students aren't worried about what my music playlist is. So you might find the same thing, or you might think, no, Shannon, in the yoga that I teach, the playlist is really important. It's just something that I noticed working with teachers in a yoga teacher training, especially a 200-hour yoga teacher training. There's something about really latching on to making a good playlist. And I think this is my own personal. I think looking back at myself, it was because I was really latching onto something that I could kind of control and make perfect and have presentable, because I was feeling a lot of doubt, a lot of like, who am I to teach this yoga class? And Amanda and I are going to talk about that kind of imposter syndrome a bit today. You'll get to hear her take on that. The other thing that I'm really excited about for today's episode is that you get to hear a little more of the business side of being a yoga entrepreneur, because that is what Amanda specializes in. Again, in my own experience of a 200-hour, and I've had the privilege to be in a few either as a student or on faculty, there's not a lot of time for business practices. And it's not, taking aim at any yoga school. It's that there is so much information to get through to students in that time. Anatomy, poses, pranayama, meditation, like I said before, all of that stuff, you need to get the basics in. And so there usually isn't a lot of time for business practices. Now, if some of you have a different experience, I would love to hear about your yoga school. If you are leading a yoga school and you make that a big chunk of the time, or if you have a separate training and it's really focused on business practices, get in touch with me. I'd love to hear about that and love to share it with our yoga community. So this was a big reason just for this podcast. The Connected Yoga Teacher was created so that you can easily have access to knowledge, inspiration, and a community of supportive yoga teachers. Every week here, you can listen to a variety of topics from yoga teachers and other professionals, and you can listen on the go. So if you haven't done that yet, you can listen from your mobile phone. If you have, say, an iPhone or an Android, you can listen as you're walking, commuting to class, gardening, or working on creating that graphic for your website or poster. If you are a yoga teacher, or if you are in a 200-hour yoga teacher training right now, you're also invited to join our Connected Yoga Teacher Facebook group. Just go to the Connected Yoga Teacher homepage. It's the connectedyogateacher.com, and you'll see the join button right there. So let's dive in and get to meet Amanda today. She's a yoga teacher who loves to talk about the business of yoga, so much that she created a podcast for yoga teachers specific to the business of yoga. Amanda Kingsmith is a yoga teacher and the founder of the M.B.OM podcast. This podcast for Amanda was really started because she had a business degree from an accredited school, and still, in her own words, she was struggling with the business side of yoga. And she thought, I must not be alone. Well, she's so right in that. I found Amanda through listening to her podcast. We've actually never met in person, but I feel like I know her pretty well from listening to her podcast. She has a passion for yoga, for travel, writing, reading, meeting new people, hiking, adventures, and tea. Amanda grew up in Alberta, Canada. I have some family out there, so I feel pretty close to this place. She also works at a yoga studio in Canmore, Alberta. If you haven't been there, I would highly recommend that you travel there. Maybe not in the winter. Amanda has traveled to more than 50 different countries and 6 continents. So she'll tell you in this episode that she tries to skip out on Canadian winters. I really understand this, Amanda. Before we get right into today's episode and hearing more about the business side of yoga and how we can help our own yoga business, here's our weekly Schedulicity tip from Chelsea.
Connected yoga teachers, this is Chelsea from Schedulicity with a hot tip of the week. Schedulicity's package management add-on is a great option for yoga teachers. This allows you to create an incentive package with a discount that can add value to your students' visits and help ensure their return business. If each one of your classes costs $10, you could create a 5 for $40 package and offer it online. Then, when your clients are booking a class, they'll see this option. Payment is required upfront for packages, so you'll be paid and they'll have a great reason to come back. Maybe one 5-class package is all they need to turn their yoga practice into a habit.
Thank you so much for that, Chelsea. Also, thanks to Schedulicity. Literally last night, as I'm recording this podcast a little sooner than you guys are listening to it, last night the packages were updated and it rolled out that I can accept online payments for the packages that I have on Schedulicity. What was really cool is that I kind of wrote to Schedulicity, a week or two ago and said, what would be so great is to be able to have my packages for my yoga classes, but also consultation calls, and have it so that students or yoga teachers can pay for them online and then slowly use them up. And Schedulicity said, not to worry, Shannon, we're actually rolling that out very soon. So I feel like they're one step ahead of kind of my wish list of what the online scheduling software would do next. As you guys already know, I'm a big fan of Schedulicity. That existed before they became our podcast sponsors. The yoga teachers that I work with at the studio joke around like all those years of you being a super fan of Schedulicity have paid off, and they're really helping to get your podcast out to yoga teachers. And it's true. So if you guys are feeling some Schedulicity love, it'd be fun if you can tag the Connected Yoga Teacher and Schedulicity in a social media post and just thank them and say, thank you, I'm a yoga teacher who listens. Also, you can leave a review. Thank you to those who did that for my kind of birthday week last week. If you haven't done so already, don't worry. My kids tease me that I try and drag out my birthday to be the entire month of October. So if you still feel like you're getting a lot out of this podcast, it'd be great if you went and left a review on iTunes. Okay, let's get into today's episode with Amanda, and I'll be here at the end just to wrap up all of the key points, but also remember that the show notes are fantastic, thanks to Laura, and you can actually click on the timestamps now to go to a specific topic. Thank you also to Rob, who puts our show together. He's the editor, the audio editor, and he does that every week in a fantastic way. I say that he always makes me sound better than I sound in real life. So thank you, Rob. Okay, here's Amanda. Welcome, Amanda, to the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast.
Thank you so much, Shannon. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you here. I'm a huge fan, and so I'm very excited that today our yoga teachers out there get to hear a little bit more about the business side of yoga. First, just let us know, what has your yoga journey looked like? Where did that start?
The first time that I did yoga was back when I was in university. I came from a dance background, and I sort of went through the process that I think a lot of young people go through, where you've been put in sports or activities your whole life, and then all of a sudden you get into university and you have to do those things on your own. And it was this whole thing for me. I remember when I didn't know how to exercise. I didn't know how to do these things. And so much me to start doing yoga with her once a week. And so we started doing that in my second second year of university, so that would have been about 9. And I just started going once a week, still see my mom while I was at school because we lived about an hour apart, to do this practice that at first I thought was a little bit slow because I'd come from this dance background. And there was just something about it. I just kept doing it. And I know that, I don't know if you've heard this a lot in your interviews, people I talk to, seems like there's just something that people always can't put their finger on that people just really connect with yoga. And I didn't realize at that point was the mindfulness. It was this time that I gave myself where I was quiet for an hour and nobody was talking at me and there was no inputs. It was just the teacher guiding me through and allowing me to follow my breath. And I remember putting on, I had this bucket list when I was in like my 3rd or 4th year of university, so like 2010, 2011, and all these travel, career things I wanted to do, and I put teach yoga on it. And I remember my friends being like, teach yoga? You do yoga like once a week. Do you even like it that much? And I don't know, there was something about it that I was like, I think I want to teach this someday. And it kind of just became more and more a part of my life. When I graduated university, I started my regular practice. I continued as I traveled more, and then I ended up working for Lululemon, which opened a lot of doors for me in terms of meeting people in the yoga community, getting my first job as a yoga studio manager, and then completing my yoga teacher training and starting to teach.
That's amazing. So 2009 is kind of where it started. And what were you taking in university?
I studied business, so I majored in marketing.
I love it. So this is where M.B.OM, if listeners don't know, tell us about now where you're at with this, with your M.B.OM podcast and what your yoga looks like now.
I started M.B.OM in 2015. So M.B.OM just, I guess, turned 2 in February of 2017. And is that right? That's not right. Sorry. M.B.OM just turned 1 in 2017.
Oh, wow.
So it's about a year and a half old. And I have only been teaching for just over 2 years. So I did my teacher training in the early spring of 2015. And I was so excited. I tripped to Bali where I was doing an intensive yoga teacher training. And I went there and I had this amazing 30 days, and I came back and I had no idea how to be a yoga teacher. I felt like they taught me everything I needed to know to walk into a classroom and actually lead the class, but I wanted more than that. I didn't teach once a month or, every couple of months some free class. I wanted to actually make that a part of my career. And I felt myself thinking, I have this business degree, I have this marketing degree, I know things from school, which, university teaches you some stuff, but of course there's the whole application part that is a lot harder than anyone ever makes it out to be. And I just thought to myself, if I actually have the textbook knowledge in my brain, so many other people don't have that. How are they, creating successful careers? And the more people I talked to and interacted with, I just felt like there was the same struggles, and it was around making enough money, creating a sustainable career, so not just teaching your face off, how to market yourself online. And I thought the yoga world needs something like this. So it was really scary because I was a new teacher. I had a lot of, who am I to start this? Maybe somebody who's been teaching for longer should start it, but I just decided to go for it and start a podcast on it. So I just finished up season 2 at the May for M.B.OM. So there's, I think, 362 episodes of the podcast, and just over a year and a half old now.
That's amazing. Well, it is so needed. And who are you? You're this person who studied business in university and then took a yoga teacher training, whereas a lot of us, I'm talking for myself for a moment, I've even taken 4 yoga teacher trainings, and in that, at most we had maybe 3 hours in a teacher training of business practices, and it just scraped the surface. So your work in this is so important, and I love your podcast. So thank you for doing it.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's always amazing to hear that people are actually listening to it and get that feedback on it. But it was one of those things where I think I was like, okay, I have the business background, but I don't know how to apply it to the yoga industry. So I kind of thought to myself, how can I, make that work? So I started making a list of all the yoga teachers I knew that looked like they were doing a good job with their career, or who I'd talked with a little bit about what they were doing, like studio ownership or running yoga teacher training. So I made a list of those people. I made a list of people who are more popular, who are in the media, who have become really successful, and I just started reaching out to those people. So that's kind of just how it happened. I decided to do it based on learning from other people. So instead of making it like a personal background project where, I'm going to go interview my 5 favorite yoga teachers or have coffee with them and ask them about how they were successful, I decided to do it in a public way so other people could learn along with me.
That's fantastic. So what are some of the big struggles that you hear about from yoga teachers?
I mean, there's lots of different things that yoga teachers struggle with. I think that one of the big things, and we talked about this yesterday, but and for listeners who are listening, Shannon came on my podcast as well, and we were talking about this dangerous word of should. And I get a lot of emails and people asking me, how many classes should I teach? Should I open a yoga studio? Should I do another yoga teacher training? Should I be running trainings? Should I run workshops? I feel really scared, which we should really just cut out of the English language because I feel like it's not beneficial to us at all. And I just said it again. But so I think one of the yoga teachers really struggle with is being intentional with your business is really important. So looking at what you want out of taking a yoga teacher training, when you decided to take this training, why did you take it? What did you want out of it? And knowing that might change. So you might go in not wanting to teach and then decide that you do, being okay with that. And so if you do come out wanting to teach, then also looking at that and thinking to yourself, what do I want out of this yoga career? You can look at what other people have done and draw inspiration from that. You can try different things, say yes to as many things as possible to find your no. But at the end of the day, you need to do the things that are going to make you happy, the things that you feel like you should be doing in the industry. And I think that that's something that yoga teachers really, really struggle with.
I think that's such a good point. I agree. And I've talked to more and more people who work outside of that traditional box. Even we heard from Renee and Paloma in the retreats episode, and Paloma works in the yoga industry planning retreats, but she's not teaching regular classes. So it could even be, I don't want to teach weekly classes. I want to do this. Or I only want to teach weekly classes. I don't want to plan retreats. I think that's amazing advice, Amanda. Thank you for that, to really look at what you want to get out of the business, even before you dive in.
Yeah, definitely. I think that just, sitting down and, as yoga teachers, we have this personal side of our practice, sitting down and meditating or whatever you do to reflect. So maybe it's a meditation and a journaling session, or maybe it's just a really intentional meditation, or, lying on the ground, just thinking. So any other inputs in what you want out of your yoga career. I remember being in yoga teacher training, and this is kind of when I think the wheels in my brain first started working. So many people, there's so many conversations around what are you going to do after teacher training? And I was kind of like, I don't know. Like, I think I want to teach, but I kind of want to try it out before I make this big claim to what I want to. And so many people were talking, I think I'm going to open a yoga studio. And I kept thinking to myself, do you want to run a business? Is that like what you want to do? Because, I've gotten to know you like 12 hours a day for 30 days, and it doesn't really seem like that's what you're super stoked on. And it's almost like people think, I need to be doing this to be successful. There's so many different paths you could do. So I think that just going inwards and see kind of in there and what actually makes you feel excited and makes you want to get up in the morning is really important.
That's such a good point. I like how you say what gets you excited in the morning. I was just thinking about that today because I kind of rolled over in bed this morning. I always think, like, what does my day look like again? I'm very foggy in the morning. And I was thinking, oh yeah, I'm really excited. Like, I have a day full of consultation calls and podcast interviews, like the whole day. So I was feeling excited. And this brings to mind, there's a podcast that I listen to, Courage and Clarity with Steph Crowder, and she really emphasizes how do you want to feel in your business. So I think this goes along with exactly what you said. When we sit down and we meditate and we already have that really mindful practice, then we tie a word in with it, like what would the intention be or how do we want to feel in that day. I think that's so powerful. Thank you for that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really important lesson. And then something else that I think is really interesting to think about is the word business gets a very, sort of like an icky connotation, I think, in the yoga industry. There's the spiritual aspect of the practice and of the teaching and this idea of karma and kind of the different principles of yoga. And then for a lot of people, I think it's kind of hard to meld that with business. So a lot of things that people ask me or seem confused about are, do I have to have a business? Do I need to be a business? And it's one of those things where the word business can mean kind of whatever you want with it. You can call your teaching a business or you could not. For me, I feel like my brain just goes towards like, this is a business. This is how you make money. This is how you pay your taxes. So you should have all the other elements around it that are going to make it a functional whole. But thinking about the actual word business and how you associate with it is kind of important, because if it's one of those things that somebody says business and you completely shut down, maybe switching that word and thinking of something else. And it's kind of the same way around, selling yourself. Sometimes we have this idea of, icky car salesmen who are trying to, take advantage of us or upsell us on the leather seat that we don't want. And we turn around as yoga teachers and go, well, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to, push my offerings on people or come across as skeezy. Like, I just want to, offer yoga. I think that you can sell yourself without, tricking people into something or having it be this icky thing. So I really like to reframe sales and business in my mind with people who reach out and people that I work with to help them understand that you can run and you can sell the things that you're offering without it being this like icky, deceiving thing. If that makes sense.
That makes total sense. I think that's a huge block. And I feel like it's more so in the yoga world. If you think of a massage therapist, maybe it's because of that lack of business practices in yoga teacher training, that it's not much of a focus. And in, say, if you went through for a dentist, you don't think, oh, I'm being salesy and icky. You think, I'm offering this service. People need their teeth looked after. Well, yoga is like, I'm offering this service. People need their bodies and minds taken care of. It's pretty huge.
Totally. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Kind of a smart business practice as a yoga teacher or, as a yoga entrepreneur, which is kind of how I like to reframe that as well, is if you teach studio classes, it's this opportunity for you to meet and be in front of all of these people. And then from there, those people kind of go into your sales funnel. So I like to think about it as in they showed up to my class and, if they only show up to one class, maybe what I said didn't resonate with them and that's okay. But if they continue coming back, they like something I'm giving them. And so, then I want them to visit my website. I want them to come to the other studios that I teach at. I want them to become private clients. I want them on my newsletter so I can share workshops and retreats and online courses and everything else I'm offering for them. And I think it's easy to think about that like, oh, that's gross, or, you're pushing that thing on them, or, it becomes that like upsell of the leather seats. But I don't think about it like that. I think about it as in somebody coming to my classes, they're getting something out of what I offer, and what I offer is, physical movement and mindfulness. And so you're just putting that stuff out there. If they decide to buy it, they've decided that because they like what you're offering.
That's such a good point. And I like how you use the word sales funnel with that, because all of a sudden I felt kind of my anxiety raise up a little bit, like a sales funnel. It is so much about marketing. And I keep challenging myself, and I'm sure yoga teachers out there are feeling the same all around what you're saying, that we need to see it as a business if we want to be making money from it and if we want to be helping more people.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that, sales funnel can just, I don't know, I feel like business, sales funnel, even marketing, they're kind of almost like these trigger words, like, ooh, like we cringe up a little at like shoulders and protect ourselves from it. Like, I don't want to be a part of that. And it's one of the things that I've tried to kind of like break down on my podcast and with what I do. But it actually took me a while because I came from this business background before I was in this yoga world where I didn't really have this icky association. And I didn't really understand why people did. And over the last year and a half, I've really understood that and taken that as something for me to learn from. But looking at what these words are, what they mean in general society, and how we can reframe them in the yoga industry, and helping yoga teachers to understand that you can run a business, you can run a business that's honest and ethical. You can run a business that works within karma and, works within the yogic philosophy. It doesn't have to be about, you're not pushing people through this sales funnel aggressively. It's thinking about how the people in your classes who continue coming are just naturally in there, and all you're doing is something like, there's a sign up for my mailing list at the desk. If you'd like to join, I send out updates once a week, and it's usually about the things that I'm really inspired, or the blog posts on my website, and then 2 retreats that I offer a year. Very non-pushy, but it's there. It's out there for people to join.
Yeah. So that's a lot of money mindset. Is there anything that you see that really helps teachers, or is it just gradually over time, or there's some shift that happens where people start to become more comfortable and see that they're adding value and that they should be receiving then payment for the value that they're offering? Is there anything that can help yoga teachers along that journey?
So I think there's kind of 2 parts to that. And as I get into this, let me know if I'm not answering the question directly. But I think that in the yoga industry, or from what I've experienced, is yoga teachers are aware of the financial side, especially if they're full-time yoga teachers. It's, the money that they make from yoga needs to fed and feed them and clothe them, which is not cheap, especially if you're in North America. That stuff is really expensive, and it can be hard to make that work on a full-time yoga salary. So I hear a lot of, I don't make enough money, I'm struggling, and I'm unable to make this work, I'm burning myself out. So I hear a lot of that, and I take that as, aware that it's not really sustainable, but they're not really sure how to make that change, or to offer more, or how to make more money sustainably, or how to just make it work to be a full-time yoga teacher and to make enough money to, live a comfortable life, I guess you could say. So I think within that, it's acknowledging that, okay, I want to do this full-time, I want to make money off of it, looking at, okay, I'm not making enough money. And then I think from there, once yoga teachers get to that point, they go, oh, okay, how can I make more money? And how can I do it in a way that I'm going to feel good about, and that, I'm going to go to sleep every night feeling fine about it? Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. And I was just thinking of an example for myself, like with the podcast. I know that I want to continue to do the podcast for yoga teachers. And in doing that, I need to make money in other places, in other ways from the podcast to sustain it. And so I sat down with a piece of paper the other day and was like, what are the ways that this podcast can help me to make money so that I can keep offering this free to yoga teachers? And I think it's exactly that shift in mindset of how can I make this work, instead of, I'm not, like adding it up at the end of the year doesn't help. Like, I only made that much money. Instead, how much do I need, in the next 3 months? I think that's huge.
Yeah, definitely. I think that anything that puts you in like a tight financial situation, or anytime that we've got money stress, which most of us have had at one or more times in our lives, so we can relate to, we become resentful about the things that we don't feel like we're making enough money on. And I think that yoga is not the type of resentful with, because if you're teaching classes and you show up there and your mind is, I'm only making this much money, I've got to pay rent, I can't afford what I want to eat, you bring that energy into the space, and then you teach in that way. And I feel like unconsciously, mostly, people pick up on that, and people probably don't want to come back to those classes. And so important to make sure that you're, teaching in a sustainable way, so that you have the energy to bring that, and that you are able to show up and feel happy to be there. Because being resentful about yoga is not why any of us became yoga teachers.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I just spoke with someone today and had that exact conversation. Like, how much would you be getting paid? I asked her for that class, because she was saying, I don't have very many registrants for it. I said, how much are you getting paid per person? Oh, I'm not sure. So there was that hesitancy, which I have had, kind of keeping my head down, not really looking up and looking at the numbers. And then once we saw, okay, this many registrants gets this much money, she was like, that's not enough. Literally, her phone went off and there was another registrant. I was like, see, you just need to, like, this has to run. I need this much money to make it run. And now what are you going to do to get it out there? That's fantastic. Thank you for offering that gem.
Just to build off that, I feel like that's so important. Like, you put something out there like a workshop, and say you're charging, $50 per person. If you have no idea what you need to make for it to be worth your time, that's kind of a tough position to be in, because you could be like, oh, there's only, 3 people, or you could be like, oh, wow, there's 10, this is so great, but not really understand what's behind it. And I don't think that, offering a workshop should be about financials, but it should be intentional, because you could offer something for free and be with that because it's a community event, or it's for a charity or something like that. And that's a whole other section of the business of yoga, but that's something you could do with intention. I think what you need to make to be happy with it, and looking at what you need to do to make that happen, is really important. And knowing that you can do that in a way without, getting in front of somebody and being really demanding for them to come to your workshop. You can do it in a really just open and nice way, and just put out your offering in a really, like, I don't know what the word I'm searching for is, but you just put it out there, and then, do what you can do and hope that somebody else picks it up.
Right. What do you think are some of the most powerful marketing tools that yoga teachers have right now?
I think that having a website is really important, and I know that websites they can be this big, scary thing if you've never interacted with them before, and that's totally how I felt before I started my first website. But you can get websites really, really affordably now. You can, purchase a domain for a couple bucks a month. You can set up a WordPress website for basically nothing. They've got some great free themes, or you can get really beautiful stuff for under $100 and just have something really simple with, a photo on the front, a little bit about yourself, your teaching schedule, your contact information, and maybe your other offerings. And I feel like that's really good because it's a place where people can go to find you, especially if you teach at a couple different yoga studios. So say you're in Toronto and you teach at 5 different yoga studios, and you probably have a different audience at each. And it's a really great way for the people who really like you to be able to see what else you're up to and to read about you. And you never know if they go to your website and the offering that you're doing in 6 months, if they're like, wow, I really like this yoga teacher, I could totally make this happen. So I think it's just this place that people go and they can go look at your stuff without feeling like it's being pushed in their face or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So I think website is definitely number one. I think newsletter as well. Having a newsletter is a really, really great way, especially if you move around, or again, if you teach at a couple different yoga studios. There's so many softwares out there now. You can do it really affordably or even for free. I mean, I'm with MailChimp, and I think it's free for like the first couple thousand people on your mailing list.
Yeah, it's 2,000 people. It's free. I use the same thing, MailChimp.
Yeah, and I think for most of us, if you're becoming like a global international yoga teacher, you have a really big studio, maybe 2,000 isn't enough. But, for most of us, a mailing list of 2,000 is quite substantial. So I think starting that, the templates are really, really easy to use. You can create really beautiful newsletters without much need to email or anything like that. You just need a couple photos and some copy and be able to link back to places where people can go to find you. And I know I've told somebody before, like, well, I need people to send out a newsletter. I'm like, you need one person. That is all you need.
Exactly.
As soon as you have one person that's given their email address, even if it's your mom or your grandma, you start sending those emails.
Yeah, and that gets you in the practice of doing it. That's a great tip.
Yeah, and I feel like it's this really personal space to kind of share things. Like in my newsletters, it is kind of an update, and especially I do it with M.B.OM, but also with the travel podcast that I run. I find that the first blurb is this really nice place to, kind of how we're feeling. And it's not long by any means. It's maybe a couple hundred words. Just sharing, where we are, life is going. And I feel like it's this nice way to connect a little bit deeper with the people who are interested in you. And I know that the yoga studio that I work at, there's a couple different teachers who keep their mailing list sign up in their bag, and they've asked the studio owner if they can put it, and he's fine with that. Sometimes they put out their workshop or their retreat posters as well. And then, when people are kind of leaving the room, putting their props away, she'll just make like a nice announcement, like, by the way, if you guys enjoyed the class, I do send out a monthly newsletter. This is what I include in it, and you can sign up right at the counter.
I think that's so amazing.
You just watch people fall out, and some of them put their emails down, some of them don't. And I would always recommend checking with the studio owner just to make sure that that's cool. But I think that if you're doing it in a really just like, here it is, you're welcome to sign up for it. I went to a festival in Atlanta last year, so it would have been like last spring, and I did this hilarious laughing yoga class, which was totally outside of my comfort zone. I'd never done anything like that before, and I really liked the vibe of the teacher. She was from North Carolina, and she just said, I have an iPad up at the front. I give a free guide away for laughing yoga. If you want to continue this practice, just come up, you can enter your email address, and I send out bi-weekly emails. And I was like, yeah, I like this. I want to see what she's up to. And so I signed up for it. I got her guide. I continued to get her emails, which I absolutely love. And then, after following her for probably like 9 months, I was like, I need to interview her. So since then, I've interviewed her. We've connected. We're friends on Facebook now. And since then, she's opened a yoga studio. I've watched her do so much cool stuff. So, it's just really, really neat to be able to connect with somebody. And I don't live down there anymore. So I probably never would have seen her again had I not signed up for her mailing list.
That is a really good point. I know I have people on my mailing list who can't make it to my class. classes and they're still there, like either they've been to a class or they signed up, just being a supportive friend. And often I'll see people and they're like, hey, I got your letter. I just haven't written back yet. And so I've made it personal.
I love that.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, you and, 1,000 other people. But I feel like it's really sweet that they feel like it was a personal note to them, which MailChimp is great for that. So we have website. I love how you put website first because I am a big supporter of having a website. I appreciate also that you said that it's scary and that it's really possible nowadays. And the second is newsletter. Anything else that you can think of in terms of marketing?
I think social media. Which is, I'm laughing because it's this whole, I feel like it's like this thing that sits in the corner, like the monster under the bed that we have to eventually deal with. But, there's so many social media platforms out there now. There's tons to choose from. And I think that sometimes people are like, okay, I'm going to get on social media with my business. And then they start Googling, what they could do. And there's so many that they get overwhelmed. And it's like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm out. Tag me out. I'm not doing it. I don't care if anyone comes to my classes. And I think that it doesn't need to be that intimidating. A lot of different platforms, but the things that I recommend and the things that other people have recommended to me are, look into a couple of them. So choose 2 to 3 different platforms that you feel really excited about. And if you're not familiar with social media, it might take a little bit to kind of familiarize yourself, but I think most people are on Facebook. So having a Facebook page or a Facebook group like you run, Shannon, can be a really, really great way to connect with your audience in whatever capacity that is. And then Instagram is something that I really love. And then, there's Snapchat, there's Google+, there's Pinterest, there's Twitter. I don't really have other ones. I have Pinterest. I do have a section for the business of yoga, but it's definitely not, where I drive a lot of my traffic from. Whereas there's other people that I've talked to who that's what they do. If you go on and you look under yoga, you'll find a lot of really great stuff. And those are generally businesses that are putting that stuff up. They're putting up their sequences and they're putting up their products and that sort of thing. And it's really about looking at the different social media platforms, a basic understanding of them, and then thinking about where is my audience who are tuning in to what I'm doing? Where are the people that I want to come to this retreat I'm offering in Thailand? And thinking about then what's going to serve you as well. Because at the end of the day, if you hate that platform, you will not post on it.
Yeah.
I don't like Twitter. I have a personal, don't like it, but I have a personal Twitter account. Our travel podcast has one. And so I started one for M.B.OM a couple months ago, and I followed a couple people, maybe like 60 people, not a lot at all. Cause I was like, oh, I just hate this. It was like pulling teeth for me to do it. I went on one day after maybe like 2 months after having it, and I had like 5 followers. And I was like, this is not serving me or my business. So I just deleted it.
Right.
I was like, I'm never going to use this. I'm sending all auto posts to it. I was like, I'm watching my Instagram grow on that. I have this Facebook page that I've cultivated that, is doing its thing. And I was like, this Twitter page has 5 followers on it. Like, this doesn't even look good on my business, and I hate it. So I just deleted it.
Good for you.
And I feel good about that.
Yeah. I know. My partner loves Twitter. He's a journalist, and I feel like it's just his thing. And he said to me the other day, because I was just, same as you, auto sending it through Zapier, like, okay, send it. And he's like, your tweets are not fitting. Like, it doesn't work. You can't just send that over. Because it's just a half a paragraph and it's cut off. I was like, oh, okay. So exactly that. If I'm not going to spend the time to do it, it's going to look like that. I like that.
There's a yoga teacher that I talked to who's based out of LA. Her name's Jules Mitchell, and she actually has on her website, I get a lot of emails. It's hard for me to respond to them all. Tweet me. My Twitter is always open. And I was like, oh, wow, that's really interesting that she does that. And when I talked to her, she was like, yeah, I just love Twitter. Like, it just really serves me for what I need. It's quick. It's efficient. I don't have to say much. Fast. It doesn't take a lot of effort. And I was like, yeah, I do get that. It's not like my style at all. Like, I prefer to intricate Instagram post or write out a full email to people. But that's just the differences between how she likes to interact and how I like to interact, and how we get value out of our time. And there's nothing wrong with either way. It's just thinking about what's going to work for you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's good. Because you're right. Social media can be this total rabbit hole. I think if you're not enjoying it, get someone else to do it for you if it's that important to your business.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we didn't even mention YouTube. That's another one that just
Oh,
came to mind.
yes. And what about posters? Do you ever make a poster, like a printable paper poster?
So that's actually the primary way that the studio manager at a yoga studio based out of Camel, Alberta, tiny little mountain town outside of Calgary, Alberta in Canada. And we do posters for all of our workshops and our classes. So our Instagram is mostly local people. It's not like a massive Instagram following. It's a lot of local stuff. And then with every single thing that we do, we make a poster for it and they go around town. And that works really, really well to fill our classes. We still use our Facebook page and go into Facebook groups kind of around the area to kind of put that stuff out there if it's appropriate. But yeah, posters are like the primary way that we do most of our advertising for the yoga studio that I work for.
I love that because some people forget that method. I was also just talking with Carol Cox. She's actually going to be, well, if you're listening to this podcast, it will have been back on episode 21. Carol talks to us about doing live speaking engagements for different groups to get the word out about your yoga.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. Like she does them in her community.
She's not a yoga teacher. She helps people do speaking engagements. She helps them to develop a signature talk, which can be really short or much longer, like a workshop. But I wanted to pull her in because it's not something that yoga teachers always think about. But I've been approached, say by a mom's group to teach baby and me yoga. And often I feel like I'm not marketing that to the fullest potential. Sometimes I forget my business cards or people are like, how do I get in touch with you? And I'm like, oh, I have a website. Like, it could use some strengthening. So Carol goes through that in episode 21.
It's kind of interesting how, we can get in these situations where we're like, oh, right, a business card. Oh, right, how are you going to get to know me? How are you going to contact me? Right. And I've definitely had those moments as well. I've gotten more in the habit of like making sure that I have business. It's kind of funny with our travel podcast, especially when we're traveling. I feel like there's such a place to give out that business card. And my boy, oh yeah, I think we've got business cards somewhere, but I don't have them on me. And I'm like, that's right here. I've got it. It's in my purse. But it took a while to make that habit. And it was actually still being like, oh, here's my business card, or watching, our other travel blogger friend be like, oh, you should go check out my blog, and being like, oh, such a missed opportunity. And I think it's the same with yoga. You can get business cards for super cheap, like Vistaprint. You can order 200 for you can design nice stuff on there, or you can go on Canva and design them. And then you've got 200 business cards to give out. Throw some in your purse. And anytime somebody's talking about yoga or mobility or meditation or how they should do more yoga, business card, boom, it's there.
Yeah, that is a really good point. I don't think I do that. And it's probably exactly that salesy thing. But if I don't if someone's saying to me, oh, I should be coming to your yoga class because my low back is sore, and then I'm not saying, oh, here's a card, I'm actually not serving them. So
definitely, and that comes full circle to the whole sales thing. Is I think it's really easy to think about, oh, I don't want to bother them, or I don't want to be in their face, or I don't want to, force them to do something. But all you're doing is saying, oh, your low back bothers you. I teach private sessions on really help you with your low back. Here's my business card. Definitely, send me an email if you want to chat further. Mm-hmm. It's like they might go home and throw it in the recycling bin, and we've wasted a little paper and maybe 2 cents, but you've done your due diligence and being like, I can help you feel better in your body. Here is that opportunity. And then you business. So yeah, kind of looking at it that two-way is great.
This is a really good point as well, because I carry around cards for 3 people that I refer to: a pelvic floor physiotherapist, a physiotherapist, and a chiropractor who I really like and trust. So I carry their cards around, and I'm thinking about it now more often than my own. So you've helped me on this little money mindset block. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Always happy to help. I also love that you carry around other people's business cards. I think that's really cool to be able to send people to the businesses that you really know and trust.
Mm-hmm. Because these are people that exactly that. I really know and trust them. And as soon as someone will come to me We have them at the studio as well. If a student comes up and they're talking to me about an issue in their body, I'm just like, have you been to see a healthcare provider? Or here's a great physiotherapist that, or here's this person, they really help someone. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Mm-hmm. And, my cards are in their office and they are also saying, oh yeah, Shannon, works with people with pelvic health issues. Like it goes back and forth definitely that way as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good exchange, and it's like knowing that you guys can do different things and that you specialize in different things, and maybe you don't have the ability to treat everything, and somebody that can help for stuff that you can't do, and vice versa. I think that's amazing to work together like that.
Is there anything else that you can think of that has really helped to shift marketing mindset or business mindset for yoga teachers, or anything that keeps coming up, or something that you know now that you kind of wish you knew earlier on in your yoga career?
That's a great question. I think that, something that I wish I would have known earlier on is, just go for it. I think it's really, really easy to have a little bit of imposter syndrome. So kind of like I mentioned at the beginning, even when starting the podcast, is, who am I to, I think that for a lot of people in general, but yoga teachers specifically, it's who am I to offer a retreat? Who am I to teach a workshop on handstands when I can't do a handstand as well as Kino yoga or something like that? And it's like, if you have something to offer, you should offer that. And I'm totally using how do we eradicate this from our language?
I don't know. I think it has a different vibe right now, though.
Yeah, definitely. It has a time and a place, I guess. But I think that if there's something that you feel excited about, looking at why, maybe if it's coming from a place of fear or feeling like you're not good enough, digging into that and just trying to understand that, because it's really easy to feel like we're not good enough, or, look on social media and see people posting these really beautiful, crazy yoga poses and say, well, I can't do that. Maybe I shouldn't even be a teacher. Of course you should be a teacher. If you feel drawn to teach, if you feel like you have something to offer your students, go for it. And it's very easy to get into the comparison mindset and play the comparison game and get caught up in what everyone else is doing. At the end of the day, I think tuning into what's going to serve you in your career and being intentional about that and getting past that fear, because we all experience it. It's super, super scary to put yourself out there. I certainly have experienced that and continue to experience that as I delve into new things, but knowing that to get where I want to be, I just need to keep pushing through it and working through that fear.
Oh, I love that. And so if people want to get in touch with you, take a class with you, or work with you in some way, tell us about what that looks like.
Yeah, so I have my yoga business website. So for M.B.OM, it's nbomyoga.com, and that's the best place to find anything about the business side of what I do. So there in the blog. The blog is mostly stuff written by me. There are some guest posts there, all the show notes for all the episodes. There's a way to contact me. I do one-on-one online sessions with people if you want to talk about your business, or you want to work together to work on any of that. And then my personal brand, that's a whole nother thing. AmandaKingsmith.com is where you can find that. It's mostly travel stories because I started it as a travel blog, but I recently launched more of a yoga part of it because I realized I was neglecting my personal yoga brand a little bit. I got so caught up with M.B.OM and growing it and everything I was doing with that I realized, what do I want out of my personal yoga brand? And I was like, I travel a lot. I really want to be teaching online. I really want to grow that since I'm not always in a consistent community. So yeah, I'm in the process of doing that. It's a work in progress. So anyone can go check that out. It's up at amandakingsmith.com. I think it's /yoga. I'm in the process of getting a YouTube channel going, which you can find through my website. But yeah, I feel like that's a good example of your business is constantly evolving and growing, and you can have different elements to it, and it might never be perfect, but you should just put it out there, even though it's scary. If anyone enjoys travel, I have a travel podcast called The World Wanders. That's theworldwanders.com. And then I am in Canmore, Alberta for the next couple of months. Studio manager for the Yoga Lounge in Canmore. So it's an amazing studio.
Do you have any big travel plans? I know you just got home from Asia. So are there any travel plans on the horizon?
Yeah, so we're going to head out again in the fall. We really don't like Canadian winter.
I'm with you.
Which I know you can relate. Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Alberta, so I was like, you know what? I experienced like 25 harsh Alberta winters. It's beautiful, but it's really cold. So my partner and I have kind of made a point of escaping winter for the last couple of years, and we've successfully transferred all of our income streams online. So we're now able to work from almost anywhere via Wi-Fi. So we're thinking Mexico, though.
I love Mexico.
Yeah, we're not entirely sure, but I think that's kind of the winner right now. So things are always changing. But yeah, if anyone is teaching in Mexico, has a studio in Mexico, runs workshops or retreats in Mexico, definitely reach out to me. I'd love to connect.
There's a couple of them in our Connected Yoga Teacher group, so I'm sure they will. I'll try and tag you in there too.
Yeah, that sounds great. I remember there was a post you put where in the world are you? And I think I was in Asia at that point. But I saw a couple people with Mexico. Mexico has been on our horizon for a while. So I was like, okay, mental note. I need to come back in here in the planning stages / there.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for all of this. I know our listeners are going to get a lot from it. And all of the show notes will be over on the connectedyogateacher.com under podcasts. So thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you, Shannon. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. I hope that your listeners get value out of it. They can definitely reach out if they have any other questions about the things we talked about today.
So there you have it, Connected Yoga Teachers. I think it's so good to really just sit with a fellow yoga teacher and kind of hash through and say, what have you learned? What has really helped you along this journey? Amanda also offers coaching calls similar to what I do with the consultation calls for yoga teachers, and she really helps yoga teachers with their business. So you can find that on her website. All of those links are in our show notes. Also, if you feel like you want to reach out and have a consultation call with me, that's on the connectedyogateacher.com. Just click on work with me. I had paused consultation calls for a bit because my schedule was packed full, but there are some spaces open again, so you can click on that. My key takeaways for this episode, thank you so much again, Amanda, because there were so many great things here. Amanda kind of said the struggles that she hears most often, she talked about that. And one of them was she was hoping that yoga teachers could let go of what they think their business should do or should look like. And we joked around about this should word, if we could just take it out of the English language. And so my key takeaway for that was really, what do you want your yoga business to look like? And I referred to Steph Crowder in this, in that she really dives in and says, what do you want to feel like in your business? Also, what was great about this with Amanda is that I started to look even further at my own business and really looking at, what does the word business mean to me? What do I need my business to look like? So as a yoga teacher, but also as a consultant for yoga teachers, there is this dance that we do as entrepreneurs, and I'll say I do this dance as entrepreneurs, as my friend Sho says, let's make an I statement out of that, Shannon, instead of we. I really need my business to generate income, and talking about marketing, sales funnels, selling, I've grown to be really comfortable with these things because the more comfortable I am with it, the more able I am to help yoga students and to help yoga teachers on the consulting side of things. So maybe sit with that. What does the word business mean to you? How are you feeling about sales and marketing? And then number 3 in this, really looking at the value of what you offer as a yoga teacher. So I feel like this is the key piece that makes that marketing and the sales funnel wording a little easier. We need to have the finances if we want to be full-time or even part-time yoga business owners. So we need to look at, how can I make more money at this and feel good about it? Amanda, thank you for bringing forward this thought of our money mindset shows up in our yoga classes. That if we are feeling like, only one person came out to this class, I prepared my posters, I did all of this work, look at all the money I paid for in training, and now there's only one yoga student here, that it shows up as a resentment, and it's really not the issue for the yoga student. And so we don't want it showing up in our classes. We want to be really confident in our marketing and our selling so that we have the class size that we need to run the session, to run the class. Number 4 of this is know what you need to make to pay for your time. So this is so important to really look at your time. How much time am I putting into this workshop or this class? How much do I need to be paid for that time? Number 5, Amanda listed out what marketing tools are really key. She said website, newsletter, so that means making your email list, social media, posters. We talked about business cards, and then live speaking and networking was one that I added in, and I'll put a link to the episode 21 with Carol Cox, where she's really great at promoting, getting out into your community and doing live speaking. So something I'm going to do this week, yoga teachers, is put some business cards in my purse, my own business cards, because as you heard in this episode, I like to carry around business cards for other people, but I'm going to put some of those with me to hand out. So I'd be interested to hear from you guys, either in our Connected Yoga Teacher Facebook group or through an email, or you can even leave a voicemail if you go to the connectedyogateacher.com. Right on the homepage over on the right-hand side is a button where you can leave me a voicemail. Let me know what you are going to do after listening to this episode today. How are you going to boost your yoga business or start to look at it a little bit more like it is a business? How has this episode inspired you? Reach out and let us know. Thanks, Connected Yoga Teachers. Stay connected to yourself, stay connected to your practice, and stay connected to your community. Take care. See you here next week.